But moving to a game, it was the big America's Game of the Week on Fox, kind of the biggest hyped game of 2022 in Week 7 was the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers, in part for a few reasons. A, it was Christian McCaffrey's first game as a Niner, and they used him on a few plays. He looked good. What do you have, four carries for 44 yards? I think is what it was. Let me see. 4 for 44? I'm sorry, 8 for 38. My bad, I was way off. 8 for 38, but he averaged 5 yards a carry, so he was effective in the touches he got. He'll obviously be more of a feature in the Niners offense moving forward. And then the second reason this was a hyped up game is because these two teams met in the Super Bowl just a few years ago in what was a fantastic game. Obviously, we all know the story. Niners are up 20-10 with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Kansas City winds up winning the game 31-20. And Patrick Mahomes, of course, won the MVP. But yesterday, Kansas City put a thumping on the likes of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, just a absolute beatdown, without a shadow of a doubt, over San Francisco, 44-23. It's unbelievable. I'm running out of adjectives to describe Patrick Mahomes, except I will go back to what I said 2 weeks ago when Kansas City beat the Raiders. Remember, they trailed 17-0 in that game, and I said on the show that Thursday, because it was the first show after that game, I said there was no point in that game, despite the fact that Kansas City had nothing going offensively, couldn't move the ball down the field, despite the fact that the Raiders were doing the opposite. Going down the field, big plays, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs is running the football well, offensive line's controlling the line of scrimmage, Derek Carr's accurate. There was never a point in that game where I thought the Raiders were going to win. Never. Hand to God, there was never a point where I'm like, oh, the Raiders might actually win this game. And, of course, Kansas City did what Kansas City always does and came back. Patrick Mahomes has trailed by double digits 3 times this season. He's won all 3 games. And I go back to what he said on that Thursday about 2 weeks ago. With respect to the greatest quarterback ever, Tom Brady, with respect to guys like Elway and Marino, there is no quarterback in the history of the National Football League that I would rather have trailing double digits than Patrick Mahomes. Because it's not only the fact that he's capable of coming back. There's plenty of quarterbacks, forget Hall of Famers, just current quarterbacks that are fully capable of coming back from a double-digit deficit. It's how quick it is. And I predicted, I almost called this game to a T. I didn't predict Kansas City win by 3 touchdowns, obviously. But I said, expect the Niners to go up double digits because they're going to come out with a big opening game plan. The crowd's going to be into it. Christian McCaffrey's going to look good. And you know, Mahomes might make a mistake, which, by the way, he did. He threw an interception on the first drive. 10-0 49ers, and from that point on, it was all Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes yesterday, just sensational. 423 yards, 3 touchdowns, QBR 0-100 of 90, and a passer rating of 132. He was absolutely sensational. Jimmy Garoppolo, on the other hand, he did throw for 300, 2 touchdowns, a pick, a QBR of 39, and a passer rating of 99. And this goes back. Kansas City, once again, sort of exposed what I've been saying about the 49ers. And this is the case with a lot of teams. But especially with San Francisco, as loaded as they are offensively, despite having Debo and now Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings and the best left tackle in football, Trent Williams, heading what is an excellent offensive line, despite having Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive coaches in the league. Put the ball in Jimmy G's hands. Make number 10 beat you. If Jimmy G can get in a shootout with the likes of Patrick Mahomes and company, the elite quarterbacks of this league, and win, you go up to his hand at midfield, you shake his hand, say, heck of a game, young fella. But he's not capable of that. You ask Jimmy Garoppolo to get in a shootout with Mahomes? No bueno. Burrow can. Allen can. There was a time Brady could. That's not Jimmy G's game. And you see the 49ers yesterday averaged about 5 yards a carry, but because it got so out of hand, because they, at times kind of struggled on third down, the 49ers did, especially late in the game, they had to go away from the running game, as explosive as Kansas City is. Also, you had, too, the Jimmy Garoppolo, and again, his pocket awareness for a guy who's in his 9th year in the NFL, his 5th, 6th year as a starter. Man, his pocket awareness sucks. We know about the week 3 game against Denver when he ran out of the back of his own end zone, pulled at Dan Orlovsky. And then yesterday, completely unaware of the fact that he's back in his own territory, in his own end zone. Quarterbacks know ahead of time. If there's nothing there, I'm throwing that baby out of bounds. Because I run the risk if I hold the ball for too long, somebody's coming from my blind side, and either they could strip sack me and Kansas City could get a touchdown, or they could sack me for a safety. They get 2 points and the ball, which is a death sentence when you're doing that to the Kansas City Chiefs. But just the creativity offensively, the screen passes, they completed that 3rd and 20. Okay, to Jerick McKinnon, who, by the way, to me should be featured more in the offense more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire is personally. That's just from what I've seen, the eye test. And we talked about, too, Kansas City doesn't have, with no Tyreek Hill, they'd have to go on sort of long, methodical drives. Not really. Not when you have an explosive tight end like the likes of Travis Kelce. Not when you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who has been unlocked in Kansas City. It's unbelievable. It's phenomenal what these guys are doing. Mecole Hardman, by the way, 3 touchdowns. I mean, just think about Juju. Juju is a guy who we thought was done. He had injury problems. We're like, this guy feels. There was a time we thought Juju was a number 1 receiver. Now we're not even sure if he's a 2. He goes to Kansas City and against the best defense in the NFL, has 7 catches for $124, including a 46-yard touchdown. Coaching matters. And when you combine the best offensive coach in the league with arguably the best quarterback in the league, by the way, the best tight end in the league, with a really good offensive line, that's not fair. That is not fair. It goes to show you how good Buffalo was last week in doing the job they did on Patrick Mahomes with those 2 turnovers, both in the end zone and then the last drive of the game. But that was probably, in my opinion, that was the most impressive offensive performance of the season. Because Kansas City is going against, to me, and I still believe the 49ers are the best defense in football. I'm taking over Dallas, Philly, Buffalo, whoever. Tampa Bay, the Broncos. I'm taking over everybody. But the fact that you trail 10-0 on the road, and by the way, a very underrated, hostile environment in the Bay Area, in San Francisco. He dropped 40? Come on, that's insane. Now, you were aided, obviously, by a turnover and by a safety. But still, that's phenomenal. And again, the Kansas City Chiefs remind me in some ways of the Warriors in terms of how they're covered by the media. Because coming into the season, look at Denver. They got Russell, which I fell into that trap stupidly. Oh, look at the Chargers. They got Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. By the way, prayers to J.C. Jackson. Looks like he suffered a pretty serious injury yesterday. We wish him the very best. But the Chargers upgrading and that offensive line, Justin Herbert. And you got the Raiders getting Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones. And nobody talked about Kansas City. Chiefs like, hang on a second. Wait a minute. We've won the AFC West how many times? We haven't not been the AFC West champion since 2015? And you're just completely dismissing us? There were pundits out there, folks, who said the Chiefs would not make the playoffs. I said, that is stupidity. If you have Andy Reid and you have Patrick Mahomes, you are a lock every single year. Doesn't matter how loaded your conference is, which the AFC is stacked. You are a guaranteed lock to make the playoffs. Even in that division, which hasn't been as good as we thought it'd be, but it still has its playmakers. It still has its quarterbacks. It's kind of like this. It reminded me of Golden State because Golden State came into last season. Everybody talking about the Lakers and the Nets and the Bucks and the Sixers. Like, there's this Steph Curry guy and Steve Kerr's the head coach. And they got this deep bench. They got these veterans. You got the experienced guys who've been in the finals 5 times, 6 times. And who won the championship? Who's on pace to possibly be the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC? Props to the Chiefs. Outstanding win yesterday. And this is a team, once again, very, very dangerous to possibly go on a long run in the postseason. But, yeah, that was, to me, to this point, that was the most impressive performance of the season by any offense in the league. Without a question. It was phenomenal. And by the way, going against a great pass rush, too. Going against a great pass rush, which obviously the 49ers are. How many sacks did San Francisco have? Trying to find it. I can't pull it up at this particular point in time, but couldn't seem like they couldn't really get to Patrick Mahomes. So listen, props to those. I'm sorry. Yeah, here we go. He was sacked once. He was sacked once by that defensive line. Outstanding. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.